The lilies smelled of expensive hospital disguised as devotion. The entire mansion gleamed with wax and old gilt. I stood beside the coffin, holding my grandfather's hand for the last time. His fingers already cold as old coins. In the hallway, heels struck the marble in a rhythm that seemed rehearsed to fit in a tribute video. "Good that you came, dear," someone whispered behind me with that sweetness that only exists when cameras are around. Another aunt passed by me and smoothed my natural hair, like someone erasing a reflection. "There, like that. Soft without volume. The group photo looks more harmonious." I swallowed hard. I did what I always did. Breathed and counted from 1 to 100, like I did with grandfather when pain visited him at dawn. In the antechamber, the lawyer waited with a stack of papers and a porcelain smile. "Words of the patriarch," he announced, as if he were a pastor of an inheritance cult. Chairs creaked, glasses clinked, and I felt eyes roaming over my skin like a barcode reader. He began reading. Farms divided among uncles, shares in mills, preferred bank stocks, 2 Miami apartments for cousins, who always represented the family on occasions. Raised hands, back-patting embraces, deserved. He knew how to recognize. Lineage is responsibility. The entire corridor exuded inherited merits. When they said my name, someone behind whispered, "Ah, good, she too." The lawyer cleared his throat, checked the last envelope and embellished his ceremonious tone. "For our dear granddaughter, who needs to clear her head after so much dedication to grandfather. A ticket to Monaco." There was a pause that hurt more than any words. Contained laughter. A cousin's slow, ironic claps, from someone who thinks travel is a prize for those who don't fit in the central photo. My mother smiled in that way that doesn't show teeth. "Daughter, it's great for you, right?" Arrest. These figures demand reputation. The word reputation settled like dust on my black dress. I opened the envelope. A one-way ticket, economy class, window seat. A single printed sheet folded over what remained of my name. There, in front of everyone, they offered me a plane out of the frame while counting millions inside it. Grandfather always said quietly, when morphine made him poetic, "The between-the-lines girl. Look at what they don't show." I held his pocket watch. My medication time marker, my amulet. The metal suddenly vibrated. It had never vibrated before. I thought it was my hand. It wasn't. In the garden, someone asked for photos. "The family women," said an aunt, opening her arms as if including me. The event coordinator moved the tripod closer, suggested positions. "You, here on the side to balance the visual weight." Visual weight. I took 2 steps back, let them balance me like a vase. I felt the watch's edge graze my palm. Another vibration, very brief, insistent. I moved away from the lens and entered the library, where the wood kept grandfather's old tobacco smell. I leaned my back against the shelf and closed my eyes for a second, so tears wouldn't ruin the composure mask they expected from me. I opened the watch case. Under the suede, a millimetric groove. I ran my nail, my card's edge, my earring's tip. The piece gave way, revealing an almost invisible microcard and a paper folded twice, so small it seemed written with a needlepoint. The words, in trembling handwriting, found me like a dawn whisper. "If they give you an exit ticket, it's because you were already inside. Follow the thread. Truth doesn't live where they send you to land." "Grandpa!" My hand trembled, but not from fear. I ran my thumb over the microcard, tiny, black, almost part of the metal. Outside, voices called my name for another pose. "Smile, everyone, please." The lawyer laughed with my uncle in the background, extending his hand to a newspaper photographer. The watch vibrated again, like a tiny heart indicating my next step. I pushed the paper back into the case, tucked the microcard into my dress lining, adjusted the necklace on my neck and breathed. When I came out to the antechamber, cameras turned like trained sunflowers. I raised my chin. The Monaco ticket weighed in my pocket like counterfeit money. The watch light finally seemed to mark the right time, mine. And, touching the bronze handrail to descend the stairs, I felt an imperceptible click on the watch's cover, as if there was more hidden inside. The vibration stopped. The silence didn't. I arrived home still in the black dress with the funeral taste stuck in my throat. The flowers I had taken to the ceremony were wilted in the sink, half submerged in dirty water. I took off my shoes and went straight to the desk. The watch still vibrated, intermittently, as if asking to be heard. I placed it under the lamplight and observed it for minutes. The old metal reflected my tired face, half split between anger and exhaustion. I lifted the cover carefully. The false compartment I had seen at the funeral was still there. Inside, the microcard gleamed discreetly, almost imperceptible. I connected it to the laptop adapter and waited. The screen blinked once, twice, and a black page appeared with a family crest and a single word blinking in the center. Password. I remembered the phrase in grandfather's note. Follow the thread. I typed the first guess. Family. The screen beep. Wrong. Second. Monaco. Wrong again. Then what he always said when I complained about family meetings came to mind. Hands that work are worth more than names on paper. I typed hands. The screen turned red, then green. Opened. What appeared made me lose my breath. They were columns of numbers, transfers, company names I'd never heard, different countries. All with the initials of people who had received fortunes in the will. Philanthropic donations sent to foundations that didn't even exist. And highlighted an account. Seed Foundation. The same one that appeared in my aunt's speeches as a social project. But there, in the ledger lines, it was a money laundering machine. I scrolled down and found the Beneficiaries tab. I read each name. All of them. Except mine. It was like watching, for the first time, the film of my own exclusion with subtitles. My hands were sweating. I looked at the watch. Now quiet, as if it had fulfilled its mission. Grandfather's words echoed. What's yours, girl? No one takes if you learn to see between the lines. The between the lines were there, pulsing on the screen. Next to my name, just a dash, as if I were a footnote to my own inheritance. I opened the family message group. Family and heritage. The day's conversations were busy. Smiling photos at the funeral, the dining table covered with crystal, comments like, everything was so beautiful, he would have been proud. And right below, a message from the oldest aunt. Avoid posting photos with Marissa, the press might misinterpret. Let's preserve the family's image. The family's image. The same one I always had to clean, balance, justify. I went back to the laptop and clicked on a hidden tab called Annex V. A warning appeared. Restricted content. Bring the watch close to the corresponding object. I stood still. Corresponding object. I remembered the giant portrait of great-grandfather in the mansion, the one that always made me look away when passing through the hallway. Maybe the V was for Victor, his name. While trying to understand, the phone vibrated with a voice notification from my mother. Daughter, I hope you've kept Grandpa's gift safe. He wanted to see you unburdened. Forget these papers. We'll see each other when you come back from the trip. Unburdened. The word sounded like mockery. I closed my eyes, let the message play to the end and deleted it without responding. I opened the Notes app and began recording everything. Names, accounts, dates. Not as someone seeking revenge, but as someone doing accounting of a lifetime of erasures. Each line, a receipt for what they tried to deny me. The house's silence was cut by the distant sound of a neighbor's television. Outside, cars passed slowly, as if the city also carried mourning. I closed the laptop but left the microcard connected. I knew that piece of metal was more valuable than any will. The watch on the table emitted one last short vibration. Almost a whisper of confirmation. I took the Monaco ticket from my pocket and looked again. On the back, there was a number I hadn't noticed before. A sequence of 4 digits and 2 letters. Maybe it was a code. Maybe it was the next step. I kept the ticket inside the watch, put on my coat and looked at my reflection in the window. It didn't look like morning. It looked like a prelude. And in the reflection I saw my own mouth saying almost soundlessly, if they wanted me to leave, they'll have to watch my return. I returned to the mansion 2 days later, when morning had already become a convenient memory. The new flowers at the entrance disguised the sweet smell of old death. The gate opened without resistance. I still had the key. I entered like someone visiting a museum where each piece is a ghost. The main hallway was too lit, each painting gleaming under cold lamps. In the center, him. Great-grandfather Victor's portrait, the man whose image hovered over all conversations, all decisions, all the family's silences. The portrait was almost my size. The painted gaze followed whoever passed, as if the canvas had an inherited soul. I held the watch, felt the metal's coldness mix with my palm sweat, and brought it close to the painting. A discreet beep cut the air, and a window appeared on my phone screen. Annex V, playing audio. My grandfather's voice, hoarse and dragging, filled the empty hallway. If they omit your part, follow the thread. The ticket isn't escape, it's password. Monaco is distraction. What I left for you is kept where silence weighs most. And remember, girl, whoever understands the value of what wasn't said inherits what no one saw. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. The voice seemed to cross time. I looked around, fearing someone had heard. But only the distant pool sound and the reflector's hum. On screen, the audio ended and opened a set of PDFs. The first was the codicil, dated 1 week before the coma. And there was my name. Marissa Duarte, heir to 20% of Seed Foundation shares and responsible for rural property audits. Signed, initialed with electronic seal. I trembled. The codicil existed, and the lawyer had hidden it in the reading. I continued exploring the files. I found bank transfers, minutes, foundation internal communications, emails from accounts using pseudonyms, always ending with @seedbr.org. A pattern repeated. Deposits made days before social donations, all from shell companies. Suddenly I heard footsteps upstairs. My heart raced. I put the phone in my pocket, turned off the watch and slid behind the shelf. The old wood smelled of mold and secrets dust. I saw the reflection of shiny shoes descending the stairs. It was the lawyer, with a phone to his ear. Yes, I checked. Nothing was moved. The event is confirmed for tomorrow. I stopped breathing. Event. He passed a few meters from me, opening the office door. I peeked through a crack. He placed an envelope on the desk, locked a drawer and typed something on his phone before leaving. I waited for the sound of steps to disappear and went to the office. The entire room smelled of leather and arrogance. The envelope had the Seed Foundation logo. Inside, a golden invitation. Gala dinner in honor of the Duarte family legacy. Location: Aurora Hotel. Date: tomorrow. Dress code: elegance and discretion. Behind the invitation, a second paper. A list of international donors with values in euros. I recognized 3 shell company names from the PDFs. It was the same money disguised as charity. The gala would be the final act of laundering. I sat in grandfather's armchair, the same where he taught me to play chess. Every game is about timing and silence, he'd say. Now I understood. The watch vibrated again, as if confirming my next move. The Monaco ticket was just the first move. The Real board was here. I opened the drawer the lawyer had locked. A small silver key lay in the corner. Picked it up, examined it. Engraved on it, a number. 1712G. Seemed more like a code than a lock. When I stood to leave, I saw something on the shelf's bottom. 2 scratched marks, as if nails had tried to scrape the wood. I ran my fingers. There was an almost imperceptible slit. Pushed. A compartment opened, revealing a mini drawer with 3 swift receipts of direct transfers to Monaco, all digitally signed by the lawyer and dated the same day as the funeral. I kept everything in my coat's inner pocket. The sound of footsteps returned. This time, closer, heavier. I closed the compartment and hid behind the thick curtain. The door opened again. The lawyer entered, murmuring, "Tomorrow she travels, everything set." I held the watch against my chest to silence any vibration. Blood pulsed in my ears. He stayed a few seconds there, handling papers, and left. When silence returned, I came out of hiding and went to great-grandfather's portrait once more. I touched the golden frame. His gaze, motionless, seemed to observe me differently now, not as ancestor but as witness. I whispered low to the painting and to myself, "The legacy changed hands, Grandpa. Now the one who'll edit this story is me." Before leaving, I looked again at the golden invitation on the desk. In the lower corner, in small letters, was printed, "Special presentation by the family lawyer." I smiled with the calm of someone who knows exactly the next step. I woke to the insistent sound of rain hitting my apartment windows. The entire night had been populated by dreams of footsteps, voices, and shelves opening. When the alarm rang, I was already sitting at the table, with the gala dinner invitation before me. The golden letters gleamed under the kitchen's cold light like a provocation. Elegance and discretion. 2 words my family always used as walls, to protect themselves from truth and keep me outside. While coffee brewed, I spread on the table the documents I'd brought from the mansion. The Swift receipts, the codicil, grandfather's audio, and the Monaco ticket. Each paper seemed to emit its own sound, a frequency of truth. I grabbed the laptop and opened the ledger. The sequence 1712G engraved on the key didn't open any system tab. I tried combining it with the invitation's QR, and to my surprise, the screen blinked and released a new folder called Gala. Inside, there were international donations spreadsheets, shell contracts, and an unsent email, drafted by the lawyer himself. After the event, transfer remaining balances to seed/foreign account. Ensure granddaughter Marissa is out of the country before disclosure. My name there, as part of the disposal plan. They wanted to dispatch me far away, with a one-way ticket, while money circulated in my name. I closed the laptop, breathed deeply, and walked to the window. The still gray sky seemed a mirror of what I felt, cold but about to break. My phone vibrated with an email notification. The sender was the same lawyer's address, but the text seemed automatic. "We remind you of your confirmed presence at tomorrow's dinner. Tickets and transportation included. Avoid delays." Avoid delays. The kind of phrase that sounds courteous but smells of threat. I decided to go to Seed Foundation's central office. I used grandfather's name as excuse. Need to collect personal items. The receptionist, pale and hurried, didn't question. Crossing that building was like walking through a corporate version of the mansion. The same neutral tones, the same ancestor portraits, the same air of superiority. In the back hallway, I found the safe the anonymous email had mentioned. A modern structure with digital lock. I passed the 1712G key on the sensor. A dry click echoed and the door opened. Inside, a black folder without label. When I opened it, I found the minutes of the foundation's last meetings, signed by uncles and cousins who, according to social media, were out of the country on the same dates. The signatures were identical, digitally copied, and in the footer a pen notation, "Include granddaughter exclusion clause to avoid challenges." My name scratched those pages like a threat to be eliminated. While leafing through the papers, a secretary's heels echoed in the hallway. I closed the folder, stuffed it in my bag, and left through a side door. Rain fell again, and cold wind cut my face, but I didn't feel cold. On the subway, I sat in the corner and reviewed everything with my gaze. Transactions, minutes, codicil. It was a puzzle, and I was beginning to see the complete picture. Grandfather's money circulated among donations, returned as investment, and the foundation was the mirror that made filth look like charity. When I got home, the watch vibrated again, a single long pulse. I connected it to the laptop. A new notification appeared. Time, 11 p.m. Location, Aurora Hotel. Side technical booth. Access granted. I felt blood rush to my head. Someone was helping me. Maybe the same anonymous who sent the safe photo. I grabbed a sheet and began drawing what I'd call Operation Seed. Verify codicil authenticity. Register certified copy. Back up all files to cloud. Appear at gala, but not as guest. As mirror. While writing, I heard grandfather's voice in memory. Justice doesn't need weapons, it needs proof and timing. I looked at the watch. It showed 10:17 p.m. Rain had stopped, and city lights reflected in street puddles like crooked constellations. Before sleeping, I left everything organized in 2 folders. One with me, another inside the turned-off oven, the most unlikely place. I turned off the lights and in the dark, the watch still glowed faintly on the table. I spent the next day with tense body, as if every muscle knew something was about to happen. The anonymous message wouldn't leave my head. Dressed in black, backstage of charity. The gala dinner would be that night. In the mirror, the woman facing me seemed different. Mourning now had armor's shape. I chose a simple black dress, no sparkles, hair pulled up high, the same silver necklace grandfather gave me on my last birthday. While getting ready, I turned on the TV. The news talked about the new generation of Brazilian philanthropists. In the footer, a familiar name. Seed Foundation, with a lawyer's face stamped beside a phrase. Legacy is knowing how to distribute what was built with dignity. I turned off the television before vomiting. I arrived at Aurora Hotel shortly before 10 p.m. Security guards at the door greeted each guest with red carpet and calibrated smiles. When I showed the golden invitation, the receptionist paused briefly, like someone surprised but decides not to ask. The main hall was a mirror of vanities. Women in shimmering dresses, men in Italian suits, society column journalists noting false praises. The soundtrack was light jazz, calculated. With each toast, I heard money being laundered clink. A waiter approached. "Champagne." "I prefer water," I replied. He smiled strangely and whispered, almost inaudible. "Side booth, left hallway. Second door." Before I could ask anything, he had already moved away, blended into the crowd. I discreetly approached the indicated hallway. The party sound diminished, replaced by electrical equipment hum. The second door was ajar. Entered. Inside, the sound technician I recognized from the funeral adjusted wires and lights. "You're the granddaughter, right? He said you'd come." "He who?" "Dr. Duarte." The old man. "Left instructions with me. Said if the watch vibrated, I should open the auxiliary entrance." I felt a shiver run down my spine. He showed me the control desk. Monitors, HDMI cables, flash drives and a panel with numbered buttons. "These are the hall projectors. You can change content with a click. The lawyer will show an institutional video at 11 p.m. If you want to put another in its place, it's here." I looked at the preview screen. The Foundation's official video, with smiling children and golden logo. A live script wrapped in emotional music. I opened my bag and took out the flash drive with a ledger, the Swifts, the codicil and screenshots. "Can you get this to run without them noticing where it comes from?" He hesitated, looked around and nodded. "I can. But if you do this, you'll end them." "I won't end them. I'll just show what they hid." He connected the device and tested. Files opened. The first image was grandfather's digital signature on the codicil, then the audio with his voice. "Want me to play everything?" "Yes. But only when the lawyer says the word, transparency." He smiled, almost admiring. "Beautiful trigger." I returned to the hall. The environment seemed more stifling, laughter more shrill. People posed for photos, and my mother saw me from afar. She walked to me, intense perfume preceding her presence. "Marissa, please don't cause a scene today. It's an important night for the family." "Don't worry, Mom. I just came to listen." She forced a smile and moved away. I sat at the last table, watching the stage. The lawyer climbed up with microphone and rehearsed smile. "Today we celebrate transparency." The word came out and my heart stopped for a second. At the back of the hall, the sound changed. The institutional video blinked, froze, and was replaced by the ledger image. The lawyer tried to continue the speech, but the microphone squealed. Grandfather's audio began echoing through the speakers. "Truth lives in the hands that work. If they omit your part, follow the thread." People exchanged glances, confused. Laughter ceased. The lawyer made a desperate gesture to technicians, but sound continued. On screen, documents appeared. International transfers, identical signatures, dates coinciding with the funeral. Number columns gleamed under the party lights gold. Guests' cameras began filming. "This is fabricated," the lawyer shouted. But no one turned off the projectors. My mother was pale. Uncles whispered. Cousins lowered their gaze. I stood up slowly and walked to the hall's center. Each step echoed like a hammer. The lights focused on me not by choice but by reflex. The lawyer screamed. The night's hostess tried to improvise. I just breathed deeply and thought, let them film. If you've ever been offered crumbs and they called it a gift, like, if they told you to be grateful while erasing you, comment. History changes when we stop whispering. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. And then from above a shout. "She has more." I looked up. It was the technician from the booth pointing at me. "There's a second part, doctor. A video the old man left. Want me to run it?" The lawyer shouted no. But I smiled firm. "Run it." The hall plunged into almost physical silence. Only the microphone's static sound and heart beating inside my chest could be heard. On the big screen, my grandfather's face filled the entire screen. Skin marked by time's serene gaze, and that voice that seemed to cross generations. "If you're seeing this, it's because truth was denied. I trusted and was betrayed. They turned what was seed into currency, and kindness into facade. My granddaughter, Marissa, is the only one who knows what it is to plant with her own hands. She understands the land's value, and that's why her legacy doesn't fit in figures." The audience was motionless. Photographers who before competed for glamorous angles, now didn't know if they should film. The lawyer, sweating under spotlight, tried to smile, but his face betrayed panic. "If they try to silence my voice, I leave here the codicil's digital record. It's in my name, authenticated, and already delivered to virtual notary. Whoever lies about this will lie before history." The recording ended abruptly, replaced by an image of the document with electronic signature and date. The audience began murmuring. First cell phone cameras were raised, and in seconds everything was being recorded. The lawyer ran to the stage, snatched the microphone from the hostess's hands and shouted, "This is fraud! A doctored video." But before he could continue, a voice came from the speakers, amplified by the same system he tried to control. "Don't touch anything, Claudio." It was the technician, invisible up there, but with the calm of someone holding truth. Cameras now turned to me. The forgotten daughter, the unworthy heir. I took a step forward. The black dress seemed more an extension of my skin, firm without ornaments. "Fraud is what you did with his name. You laundered money, forged minutes, hid my right, and still had the audacity to send me away as if I were the family's mistake." The lawyer stood motionless, hands trembling. My mother, sitting at the front table, lowered her eyes. I continued, "While you celebrated transparency, grandfather's money circulated among shell companies. It's all recorded. Every cent. Every cloned signature. Every documented lie. And now everyone's seeing." Silence was replaced by murmurs. Someone was live streaming, and viewer numbers climbed on one of the phone screens. Suddenly, the lawyer dropped the microphone and tried to leave the stage. Two people from the audience, foundation investors, intercepted him, demanding explanations. A reporter thrust her phone in his face, asking questions about transfers. Chaos had begun. I approached the table where my mother was. She still hadn't stood up. "Is this what you wanted to protect, Mom? An empire of lies?" She breathed deeply and responded, voice trembling. "You don't understand. All this was to preserve the family name. Your grandfather never wanted scandals. He wanted truth. And that was never scandal." She fell silent. Her gaze, before hard, was now defeat. The video on screen returned, unexpectedly. An old image. Me as a child beside grandfather planting a tree seedling. His voice narrated over it. "What grows from earth only stays alive if watered with honesty." People began applauding. first timid, then growing until it became a roar. The lawyer, cornered, tried to justify. She manipulated the files. She wants revenge. But the technician, again in the booth, opened the microphone and said, "All files came from the Foundation's original server. Verified signatures. And there's more." The screen changed again. Now it showed a folder titled Transfers 2023. Inside, security camera videos from the office itself, showing the lawyer and two of my uncles manipulating papers and digitally signing in grandfather's name after he died. The audience reacted with a chorus of shock. One guest shouted, "This is crime. You forged a dead man." My mother covered her face with her hands. I just observed, motionless, without needing to say anything. Images spoke for me. On screen, a final segment. The lawyer tearing the codicil's original envelope, the same I found fragmented in the safe. Final proof. He fell to his knees, sweat dripping, microphone on the floor. The hall doors opened with metallic noise. Two men in suits entered, displaying golden badges. One looked directly at me and said, "Marissa Duarte, we received your complaint. Everything's recorded. We need to talk now." And for the first time that night, I felt breathing return to right rhythm, as if, finally, inheritance's weight began to shift places. Guests' cameras still trembled in hands when the two men approached. The taller showed identification. Financial Crimes Division. The other, younger, seemed to observe everything with almost clinical attention. The hall, before deafening, was now in absolute silence, the kind of silence preceding ruin. "Ms. Duarte," said the older one, "do you confirm being direct heir of deceased Gustavo Duarte?" "Yes." "And confirm that documents presented in this exhibition were obtained by the testator himself?" He nodded. He exchanged a look with his partner and then turned to the lawyer, still kneeling. "Claudio Meneses, you're detained under suspicion of document forgery, money laundering and improper use of philanthropic funds." A murmur ran through the hall. Two women stood up, hurried, trying to distance themselves from cameras. Other people filmed shamelessly, flashes transforming scandal into spectacle. The lawyer tried to react. "This is absurd. This woman invaded our systems. She manipulated everything." But the younger man interrupted him, showing the watch I wore. "Was this device delivered to you by the deceased?" "It was." He opened the side panel and revealed an embedded microchip. Biometric Authentication Registry. This technology stores direct data from testator. All exhibited files were extracted from here. Cell phone lights shone more intense. The lawyer, realizing there was no way out, lowered his head. My mother, motionless, observed the scene with pale face, between guilt and disbelief. "He didn't want it to be like this," she murmured quietly. "But this is how you chose it," I replied. One officer asked me to accompany him to a reserved room. Before leaving, I looked at the stage. Grandfather's portrait still on screen, now surrounded by chaos. A waiter collected broken glasses, and guests whispered among themselves, divided between curiosity and fear. In the hallway, the party's muffled sound mixed with distant sirens. I handed the investigator the flash drive with copies and the phone where I saved backup. "My grandfather wanted justice, not revenge," I said. He nodded with a half-smile. "Sometimes justice needs courage. You've already done the hardest part." I returned to the hall to get my bag. The video had ended, but damage was irreversible. A reporter recognized me and ran with microphone. "Did you expect this outcome?" I smiled, unhurried. "No. I just expected to be heard." As I left, I heard someone call my name. It was my mother. She walked slowly, eyes watery. "You destroyed the family, Marissa." Turned serene. "No, Mum. I just removed the veil." She stood there, stopped between luxury and emptiness. And I kept walking, each step echoing like liberation. Outside, the night was humid and cold, but air seemed breathable for the first time. The hotel, illuminated and decadent, reflected in rain puddles like a mirage. I grabbed my phone and opened social media. The revelation video was already going viral. Hashtags with the foundation's name spread, and the lawyer's face stamped real-time headlines. At the top of screen, a notification blinked. A new message from unknown number. The plan worked. But there's still one part left. Go to the address on the back of the Monaco ticket letter. I looked around. Taxi stopped at the curb. I got in, still in the black dress clinging to my body and document folder on my lap. Where to, ma'am? To the airport, I replied. The driver turned on the radio, and local news talked precisely about the lawyer's arrest and investigation opened against Seed Foundation. I smiled without saying anything. While the car sped down the wet avenues, I pressed my forehead to the window and thought of grandfather. How he planted each seed with patience, how he said time has its own rhythm of justice. But deep down I knew, that trip wasn't escape. It was the plan's final move. And the name on the Monaco ticket still echoed in my mind, like a password yet to decipher. The luminous airport sign reflected in the sidewalk puddles, drawing golden stains on the wet asphalt. I entered with my heart divided between the end and the beginning. The message on my phone still glowed on the screen. He left something for you, but it's not in Monaco. It's where everything began. I sat on the cold metal bench in the boarding area, the distant sound of announcements echoing above my head. I ran my fingers over the Monaco ticket, trying to understand. On the back, handwritten, the address. São Miguel Street, 37. My chest tightened. It was the address of grandfather's old house, demolished more than 10 years ago. The place where he planted the first tree seedling with me. The beginning. I grabbed my phone and cancelled the flight. The attendant looked at me confused. Change of plans, I murmured. I left the airport and called a car. The city seemed different during the early morning. The long, damp avenues, the streetlights reflecting in the glass, the building shadows mixed with childhood memories. With each kilometer, the feeling that I was returning not just to an address, but to a time. When the car stopped, the driver looked through the rearview mirror, suspicious. Are you sure this is it, miss? He nodded. The street was deserted. Only an old rusty iron gate, covered with ivy. I got out, pushed the gate, which creaked loudly, denouncing my arrival. I crossed the abandoned garden. The ground covered with leaves, the air smelling of earth and memories. In the center it was still there, the tree we planted together. Taller, stronger, even after so many years. I placed my hand on the damp trunk. And that's when I saw it. A small metal plaque embedded at the base, covered with moss. Wiping it with the dress's cloth, I read the engraved words. Marissa, the root doesn't die with the branch. Follow the sound of the earth. Under the plaque, a small crack, covered with hardened clay. I dug with my hands, the cold earth entering under my nails. And there, wrapped in linen fabric, was an old envelope with grandfather's seal. Inside, a letter and a flash drive. The trembling but firm handwriting. If you're reading this, it's because the rest of the family chose the easy shine and forgot the seed. Here's the last part of the legacy. It's not money. It's the project that sustains everything they stole. I turned on the laptop right there, using the phone signal as internet. The flash drive opened a file, Root Project. And then I saw land blueprints, environmental reports, cultivation authorizations, export contracts, the real patrimony in grandfather's name and mine. He had registered half the project in my ID number years ago, silently. It was the only legitimate part, untouchable, outside the illegal transactions. The ground seemed to spin. They didn't want to exclude me just out of contempt. They wanted to erase me to hide that I was the only one with legal power to claim the clean patrimony. While processing everything, I heard footsteps behind me. Turned quickly. A man approached, the tall silhouette, the face partially illuminated by the street's weak light. It was the same technician from the previous night. How did you know I'd come here? I asked, suspicious. He smiled. Because your grandfather told me. I worked for him long before the foundation. I was the one who digitized the Root Project. He knew the right time would come. He handed me a new envelope sealed. Here are the passwords to public records and access to the ecological farm account. Your name is already listed as administrator. The old man planned everything so that when truth came to light, what was clean would be reborn from the ashes. I was speechless. The cold wind cut my face, mixing tears and rain. And the others? Yes. My family. They'll try to react, but now the entire country knows what they did. And you have what they'll never have, the true story. He started to walk away but turned one last time. Oh, and one more thing. Tomorrow when you wake up, check the news. Your grandfather prepared one last gift. I returned to the car still dazed. I kept the documents in my bag, the flash drive in the inner pocket, the silver necklace attached to the rearview mirror chain. Tomorrow. The driver asked for the destination. Home. And for the first time I felt that word made sense. If you've also had to dig your own truth, share this story. Because sometimes the strongest root is the one that grew in silence. The recording on the radio seemed impossible, but it was real. My grandfather's voice crossed the static's hiss as if coming from another time. The true testament begins now, my daughter. If you've come this far, it's because you learned what the rest never wanted to understand, the value of cultivating what isn't seen. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror, intrigued. Everything okay, ma'am? Yes, I replied, still mesmerized. I put away the phone, closed my eyes and let the sound guide me. The voice continued, paused, serene. The Root Project wasn't created to generate profit, but to restore destroyed lands. They transformed my idea into a facade, but you can bring it back to what it was. Go to the main warehouse. The seed is there. The recording ended, and the radio returned to silence. The next day, I arrived at the location indicated on the flash drive's digital map. An old ecological farm in the mountains, abandoned since the foundation scandal. The road was narrow, covered with mud and leaves, and the gate was rusty. I pushed hard until I heard the chains snap, breaking. Inside, the scene seemed frozen in time. Tools covered in dust, torn seed bags, broken solar panels. At the back of the warehouse, a still intact wooden table. On it, an iron box with an inscription. Last planting, 2018. I opened it slowly. Inside, I found hundreds of seed envelopes, each with the original foundation seal, before it was corrupted. Along with them, a small brown-covered notebook. The first pages contained the draft of a manifesto written by grandfather himself. These seeds belong to the people, not to heirs. If the heir reads this, may she distribute what belongs to the earth. What flourishes shared never dies. The words went through me like hot wind. For a moment I cried, not from sadness but from recognition. He never wanted just legal justice. He wanted living reparation. While I was leafing through the notebook, I heard the distant sound of tires on gravel. The dust rising on the horizon. The same sense of danger I felt at the wake returned with force. I hid the notebook inside my blouse and closed the box. Black car approached. I went down the warehouse's side stairs and hid behind a pile of old boxes. Two male voices echoed. She came here. Her GPS was tracked. Then finish it now. The lawyer may have fallen, but the order continues. My heart raced. I grabbed my phone and, with trembling fingers, opened the silent camera. I started filming. The images showed two men from the foundation entering the warehouse, opening drawers, handling the table, trying to break into the box. One of them kicked the lid and cursed. Nothing. He must have left it somewhere else. The other responded. Doesn't matter. We just need the blueprints and papers. If she reappears, do what needs to be done. They left. I waited for the engine noise to disappear before coming out of hiding. The video was still recording. I breathed deeply and sent the file to my email and to a public drive, with a temporary link to be released if I didn't access it within 24 hours. The adrenaline made me dizzy but lucid. I returned to the car and drove to a nearby inn, where I rented a simple room. I closed the windows, took the laptop from my bag and reviewed everything. Flash drive, the notebook, The video of the two men. The ledger copies. The signatures. Everything formed a perfect line. And in the center, me, the piece they underestimated. I opened the email and began to write. To National News, BBC, Roots Magazine, Green Observatory. Subject. The Farce of Brazilian Philanthropy. Evidence attached. My name is Marissa Duarte. I was erased from my own family's history. Now I bring records that prove how one man's legacy was distorted in the name of power. This email contains copies of documents, videos, and official reports. The rest belongs to justice and collective memory. I sent it. The clock read 11:45 p.m. when the last message was delivered. Outside, the wind made the leaves beat against the window. On the laptop, the root project file remained open, with grandfather's final phrase highlighted in bold. What is born clean never needs to hide. I felt my chest lighten. For the first time there was no fear, only purpose. The phone vibrated again. It was a video call, unknown number. Answered. The screen darkened for a second and then a frozen image appeared. My mother crying in a place that looked like the foundation's old office. They're coming after me, Marissa. They think I was the one who helped you. My mother's image trembled, her eyes watery and the sound of something breaking in the background. The scenery behind her was familiar. The lightwood walls, the foundation's paintings, the same office where it all began. They're here, Marissa. I swear I didn't tell them anything. Her voice sounded panicked, muffled by the sound of footsteps and male voices. My heart raced. Mom, listen to me. Get out of there now. Go to the front desk, call the police. They locked everything. Said they need the files. They want to know where you are. Before I could answer, the screen went black. The sound cut. The call dropped. The silence that came after was heavy, almost physical. For a moment I thought about calling back, but knew it would be useless. If they were inside the building, they'd trace any signal. I closed the laptop and leaned my forehead on the table, trying to control the trembling of my hands. I had won in public, but underestimated how much power tries to survive even when exposed. I looked at the window. The wind beat against the glass, blowing the curtains as if warning that time was running out. I grabbed the silver necklace and squeezed the pendant in my palm, remembering what grandfather used to say, "Truth only ends when it flourishes." I stood up, breathed deeply and organized everything. Grandfather's notebook, the flash drive, the digital copies and the complaint backup. Everything in a sealed folder with adhesive tape. I wrote on the cover, "If anything happens to me, publish immediately." I sent automatic copies to 3 journalists who had already responded to my email with interest. While the upload completed, my phone vibrated again. A new anonymous message. What they want is in the office safe. The same one you opened at the foundation. Your grandfather kept something there that nobody saw. It's the only thing that can still end this. Safe. I remembered the structure, the cold feel of the metal, the click sound. I breathed deeply. I knew returning was risky, but if grandfather left something there, it could be the final piece. I took the car and drove down the dark roads, the headlight cutting through the early morning fog. Each kilometer seemed like a return to everything I tried to leave behind. My hands sweated on the wheel, my heart beating out of rhythm. Upon arriving, the foundation building was almost dark, except for the weak light from the main room. The gate was ajar. I entered without making noise. The sound of my heels on the marble echoed like memory. I went up the stairs slowly. The hallway smelled of old paper and familiar perfume, my mother's. When I reached the office door, I saw the cracked glass. Pushed carefully. She was there. Sitting on the floor, crying, her face covered with smeared makeup. "Mom!" I ran to her. "They took everything, but didn't find the safe," she murmured, her voice weak. "They said you'd come back. That I should hand you something." She took from her pocket a small folded paper, almost undone by sweat. It was a handwritten password with grandfather's handwriting. 1730L, last planting. I looked at the corner of the room. The safe was still there, hidden behind the family portrait. I pulled the frame, typed the password. The metallic sound spread through the room. Inside, a small wooden box, covered with dust. When I opened it, a beam of light escaped from the safe's small lamp, illuminating the contents. A golden flash drive, an old newspaper clipping, and a photograph. The clipping carried a headline from decades ago. Duarte Foundation launches reforestation project in Quilombola communities. Below, a photo of grandfather smiling next to black women, holding tree seedlings. Behind the photograph, a phrase written in pen. The seed belongs to whoever waters it. I swallowed my tears. I grabbed the flash drive and connected it to the laptop right there. A single file appeared. MP4. Click. The shaky image showed grandfather in an open field, beside a sign. Root Project, Living Quilombo Nucleus. He looked at the camera and said, "If one day they take my name away, let them know that what I built began with them. The women Brazil forgot, but who sustain the land with their hands. The true heir is whoever continues the work. And if that person is listening, don't return the money. Return dignity." The words kept echoing inside me like fire. I looked at my mother. She sobbed but smiled between tears. "Now I understand what he saw in you," she said. "You're his real heir." The sound of engines outside interrupted the moment. Bright lights invaded the windows. Black cars, headlights on, voices shouting orders. "They came back," I whispered. My mother squeezed my hand tightly. "Go. Take what he left. I'll hold them as long as I can." I hesitated for a second, but her look left no doubt. I ran down the hallway with the flash drive in hand, the sound of footsteps echoing behind me. Outside, the gate opened violently. Voices shouted my name. A gunshot broke the early morning silence. I threw myself behind the car, the flash drive firm between my fingers. And as the engine roared, I realized the true legacy wasn't just his. It was mine. And whatever it cost, I was going to make it flourish. The sound of the gunshot still echoed inside my chest when the car sped down the deserted road. The early morning wind hit my face hard, but fear now had another taste, that of someone who finally understands their own role in history. I held the golden flash drive so tightly that my fingers hurt. The road slid under the headlights like a taut thread between the past and what would come next. Behind me, the lights from the black cars still tried to reach me. Headlights blinking like teeth. But I knew those curves better than them. Grandfather used to take me there when I was a child, saying every path had an exit that only those who planted knew. I accelerated, took the narrow detour and turned off the headlights. The pursuers went straight past. My heart took minutes to slow down. I parked in a clearing surrounded by eucalyptus and let the silence fall. On my phone, dozens of notifications, reporters, support messages, hashtags with my name. The headlines already displayed. Seed Foundation unmasked. $1 billion scheme exposed by black heiress. But the news that made me tremble was another, in smaller letters, at the bottom of the screen. Woman injured during confrontation at Foundation headquarters identified as Maria Duarte, Marissa's mother. My body froze. I called immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. My throat locked. I breathed deeply. I knew she would stay. She always stayed, even when she pretended not to see me. I looked at the flash drive once more. The word origin was engraved on the back, with a thin, almost handcrafted notch. Inside was the last piece, the one he said would return dignity. I opened the laptop and connected the device. A new file appeared. Final answer manifesto de texte. The first lines were his. If you're reading this, it's because justice hasn't flourished yet. The Root Project is now yours. Distribute, replant, return. Don't use the system that corrupted us. Create another. The lands in my name belong to the communities that cultivated them. And if they call you a rebel, say you're the heiress of the soil. I cried without shame, without hurry. It was as if, for an instant, the weight of inheritance stopped being pain and became destiny. I grabbed my phone and did what he asked. I opened the drive with all the files and attached the manifesto. I recorded a short video in the middle of the clearing's darkness, with a camera facing my face. "My name is Marissa Duarte. They tried to erase me, but you can't erase a root. Today I make public the true testament of Gustavo Duarte, a legacy that belongs to the people, not to pockets. The documents, the evidence, and the Root Project are now available to anyone. May this flourish wherever there's land and courage." I clicked publish. The video uploaded on social networks in seconds, replicated and shared en masse. Within minutes, it started to rain. Strong, thick drops, falling like beats on the car hood. The sound of rain mixed with the sound of notifications exploding on the screen. Suddenly a call. Unknown number. I answered with my heart in my throat. "Marissa." "It's me." The weak but alive voice. It was my mother. "Are you okay? Where are you?" I managed to get out. The police arrived in time. They took the men and I just want to tell you that your grandfather would be proud. I am too. My breathing failed and for a moment time stopped. "He believed in you from the beginning," she continued. "Said the family's strong blood didn't run in those who had money, but in those who had courage." I closed my eyes, and a tear mixed with rain descended down my face. "Come home, Mom. His story is still alive." "I will. But now the home is yours." The call dropped, but the silence that came wasn't empty anymore. It was peace. I looked at the sky, where lightning drew white lines between the clouds. The screen's reflection showed my face. Tired, wet, but firm. For the first time, I saw in the rain's mirror not the family's rejected woman, but the legitimate heiress of truth. The phone vibrated again. A notification. The video had reached 3 million views in less than an hour. Journalists asking for interviews, NGOs offering support, universities citing the manifesto as an example of historical reparation. With each click, the sound of the past came undone. And grandfather's image, that one from the field with hands full of earth, returned to mind as a symbol. While I closed the laptop, one last email arrived. The sender was unknown, but the subject said, "He asked me to hand you something personally. Tomorrow at sunrise, go to the first planting tree." And for the first time I smiled with tranquility. I knew the end was near. Or perhaps the true beginning. The sun rose slowly, dissolving the fog that covered the road like an old sheet. I drove in silence, the golden flash drive hanging from the rearview mirror, swinging like an amulet. The first lights of day transformed everything. The mountains, the trees, even the fear. Seemed the world was breathing again. I arrived at the land where it all began. The same tree that grandfather and I planted years ago stood there, more imposing than ever. Its roots had cracked the surrounding cement, as if the earth had decided to reclaim what was rightfully hers. I parked the car and walked to the trunk. The dew wet my feet, and the wind brought the same wet earth smell I felt in childhood. I approached and saw someone in the distance, leaning against the tree. A man in a simple suit, hat in hand. The same sound technician, my grandfather's silent messenger. He smiled when he saw me. "I knew you'd come. You were part of his plan from the beginning, weren't you?" "Not part. Just the soil. He planted and I watered. Now it's your turn to harvest." He extended to me a brown envelope, sealed with the old Duarte Foundation crest. Inside there was a handwritten letter with my grandfather's unmistakable handwriting. "Marissa, if this letter reached your hands, it means the seed resisted. I always knew they would try to pull you from our history. Out of fear of your strength. The money they disputed is wind. What I leave you is ground. Use the Root Project to return to the earth what was taken from it. Create a network, unite the hands that were denied, and show that the most powerful inheritance is shared truth. And when they ask who you are, say only, I am what flourished from what they tried to bury. Your grandfather, Gustavo." I closed my eyes and felt the weight of those words fill the silence. For an instant, everything around seemed to listen with me. The wind, the branches, even the birds stopped singing. I looked at the technician. He knew the world would see. He knew, but wanted it to be through the right hands. He pointed to the horizon, where trucks unloaded seedlings, seeds, and tools. Groups of volunteers, women, young people, farmers, began to arrive, coming from various regions. The Root Project was being reborn there, not as a company, but as a movement. I took the silver necklace from my neck and tied it to the tree's lowest branch. The chain shone under the sun, as if time had bent to return what was mine. "Thank you, Grandpa," I whispered. The technician looked at me one last time, nodded and walked away. I stood alone before the tree, and felt a peace I had never felt. No words of hatred, no resentment, no need for revenge. Just justice, alive, clean, flourishing in silence. I grabbed my phone and recorded the last video, with the sun rising behind me. My name is Marissa Duarte. My family's legacy began with exclusion, but ends with sharing. The Root Project is now public, accessible to whoever wants to rebuild what was destroyed. May no one else need to ask permission to belong. May every Black woman who watches this remember. We are the soil, and no one uproots what was born deep. I sent the video and watched it spread, multiplying on networks, in voices, in hearts. I closed the laptop and looked one last time at the tree. The sun pierced through the branches and illuminated my face. For the first time I felt whole, not as the forgotten granddaughter, but as the heiress of a story the world tried to erase and that now flourished before me. As I walked back to the car, the wind blew through the leaves and for a brief instant, I swore I heard his voice again. "Now yes, my daughter. Now, everything returns to the right earth." I drove slowly, with the open horizon ahead and a light heart. Behind me, the sound of hose began to mark the rhythm of replanted life. If you believe that justice is also flourishing, subscribe. This isn't just a revenge story. It's proof that strong roots never die.